Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I'm Tyler here with my brother Ryan. Today we are breaking down the Philadelphia Eagles 2024 schedule. Going to give our absolute floor and ceiling for the team this season. But before we get into that, if you have not already, go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and tackle the bell to get notified when new videos come out. We have a lot of great content coming out, and we have release videos every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Once the season starts, we're going to have a weekly prediction video of all the Eagles games that you're not going to want to miss. So like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Ryan, before we get into the season, let's quickly kind of recap what the Eagles improved on. And I think just the biggest thing, as well as you just go look at it, they were second to last in overall passing yards allowed this year on the defensive side of the ball. And already when I go look at the moves that they made, I already think defense, one, it can't get any worse statistically. I guess technically it could. There's one team that did worse than them. But already adding back C.J. Gardner-Johnson, getting Tyler Hall, adding Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean already, it much improved in the secondary already, at least a lot more competition. I still like Darius Slay. There's a lot of other questions with everybody else in the secondary as well. They did lose some key veterans. Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox have retired and have moved on to a new chapter in their life. That being said, I'm not nearly as concerned about the trenches for them as if it was some other teams, because they've done an amazing job for the past couple of years kind of preparing for this moment here. So I am going to be curious how the offensive line shapes up. Defensive line's pretty much already shaped up as well. I mean, Jordan Davis and then Jalen Carter as well. Very easy replaceables, I would say. And so I think kind of want to throw it to you. Outside of their secondary, what areas do you think the Eagles really improved on in the 2024 offseason?
Probably, the running back room I feel like is the obvious one with Saquon Barkley. Yeah. It is a little bit hard. I felt like they can't really improve in the wide receiver room with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. Those pieces are already pretty solid. I am a little concerned about maybe the defensive trenches as a whole. They were first in sacks in 2022. In 2023, they only had 43 sacks, which ranked 20th. And I will say, like 10 through 20, it was like 48 sacks to like 43 sacks. Like there was a bunch of teams like right in that range. So they just happened to be on the lower end of that. And so I do get a little concerned when it comes to this pass rush, just because they have a lot of interior guys. But I think you look at the edge pieces. They drafted Nolan Smith after Jalen Carter, and then they let Hassan Reddick go, who was, I believe, their leading sack leader 2 seasons ago. And they brought in Bryce Huff, who had a good season a couple seasons ago also. So I think they're going to have to mix and match a little bit on that defensive line to maybe get the production that they want, because that is when that defense was really good. Also, they did bring in Vic Fangio as the defensive coordinator, and that should be a pretty big upgrade over Matt Patricia, who just did not do a good job at all. So
Matt Patricia. How did he get to start in? Because I remember he was the head coach of the Lions.
So he came up through New England and he was actually like an aerospace engineer, and then somehow got into coaching and was a defensive assistant and then the defensive coordinator for a few seasons for New England. And then that's how he got the head coaching job at the Lions.
So he decided to both the Patriots offense and the Eagles defense just blow it up into space. Is that pretty much what?
Yeah.
With that big degree, because that's my dumb joke of the video. And so let's segue over now to the 2024 schedule here. So we're going to go in 6 game segments. In week 1, technically it's a home game, but going down to South America, going down to Brazil, and they will be hosting Green Bay. That's gonna be a fun game. Then coming back and then hosting Atlanta in week 2. That'll be a lot of fun. We'll actually be on vacation during that game, so that'll be neat to see. Week 3 at New Orleans. Week 4 at Tampa Bay. Have a bye week 5, which might be needed actually with all that travel. Think about all the travel that they're going to be doing during that time. And then week 6 hosting Cleveland. Their first normal home game, I would say. All the other ones are going to be prime time or just a weird schedule. So when I look at that, on paper, obviously it's hard to not think about how the season ended last year, but that was last season. It's hard for me not to look at this and think that they could go 5-0. I will say if I'm being fully realistic, I think Green Bay might be a better team. I think it's gonna be tough. At the same time, you go and look at this paper at just at the depth chart here. It's gonna be week 1. It's gonna be an international game. I think they can still win that game. Atlanta, same thing. You're going to have a new head coach, new quarterback in there. They might. I think it's going to be a good game. But I will say, I think an absolute ceiling here. They're better than New Orleans. They should be better than Tampa, even though obviously, as I said, we all know what happened at the game last year as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming off a bye hosting Cleveland, I'll be honest. I don't see why they can't win all these games. And I know how last season ended, but do you disagree? What do you think?
Yeah, I would say 4-1. I think they'll probably drop one of the games, like to Green Bay, Atlanta, Tampa, and Cleveland. Those are 4 like teams that could be expected to make late playoff pushes come the end of the year. And I don't necessarily think I see Philly just rolling through all of them. I will say I think they have a floor of 1-4. If the woes kind of continue through the end of from the end of last year into this year, especially you look Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, those were not just 2 like on the field leaders, those were 2 locker room leaders as well. And I really could see this team just kind of continuing in that nosedive. And I think 1-4 would be the epitome of that.
Yeah. I mean, I can see it. I was wondering about that too. I feel like it's because I don't want to think too much on how last season ended because it's a totally different season and they've made clear improvements.
Yeah.
But to your point, though, I mean, Green Bay, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, and Cleveland are all going to be vying for playoff spots, if not the divisions already within. So technically, let's go with that. Let's go with 4-1 as a ceiling, 1-4 as a floor to start. So I think it's probably unlikely. I think it's going to be closer to 4-1, but I can see your point. They're good teams.
Yeah.
Next 6 games: Week 7 at the Giants, Week 8 at Cincinnati, Week 9 hosting Jacksonville, Week 10 at Dallas, Week 11 hosting Washington on Thursday Night Football, and then Week 12 at the Rams on Sunday Night Football. Here, we'll say looking at this, I think just instinctively, I think 4-2 is going to be a good ceiling. I think 2-4 is going to be probably their floor. Like they can beat the Giants, even though I know the Giants beat them towards the end of last year as well during that woe. But even to Jacksonville and Washington, I think are beatable games, especially Washington on a shortened week. And if those don't even work out, I think they'll figure out a random game between Cincinnati and Dallas or the Rams at the worst. But I think 4-2 though they're going to be going up against some good playoff teams here as well during the stretch. So they're not going to win all of them, but I still think a good start to a good middle section performance is going to be 4-2.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That I think 4-2, 2-4 is what they'll end up at. I do think they might have some trouble with like the Rams specifically. That game, I don't know why it jumps out to me, but maybe they give them some trouble. Cincinnati also has the offensive firepower, I think, to kind of run up the score. It reminds me a little bit of that Buffalo game last year that went to overtime.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely some interesting games here, but yeah, I think 2-4, 4-2, good floor ceiling options there. And then to wrap up the season, I do think they have an easier end of the season. It doesn't start out that way, having to go to Baltimore, but then they get Carolina, Pittsburgh, at Washington, and then they get Dallas and the Giants at home to close out the year. And I could see them going 5-1 in this section. I actually think their floor is probably like 3-2, maybe 3-3, because Baltimore is a really tough matchup. I think Dallas could pose some threats. Actually, sorry, 4-2, not 4-2. I think is probably their floor in this group because they should be better than all of these teams just flat out on paper.
So you're saying their 2 losses would be Baltimore and Dallas, and then their ceiling would then be 5-1. Yeah, I can see that.
I think they win one of those.
Yeah, I can see that. They should be able to beat all the other teams. Like Baltimore and Dallas are going to be the two big ones. Also, too, the Giants game as well. I think we can count that as a win already because I don't think the Giants have beaten Philly in like 10 years or something like that. I think it's been a decade. So So that's at least one win. But I can go with that as well. I mean, Baltimore and Dallas is going to be the big games there. At this point, really, who knows? But that goes back to what I was saying is we all know how the season ended last year, and I don't think that trend's going to continue. I think that was the extreme on the other end. I think they're going to be a good middle of the road team at worst. And so, kind of with that, if they start off, it's a 1-4, 2 and 1-4, 2-4, and then 4-2. So that's a floor of 7-10.
Yeah,
which I think that is worst case scenario. I think that's fair. I think best case scenario that they go 4-1, 4-2, and then 5-1 is then you're looking at a 13-4 season, and I think that's possible with this makeup here. That would put them at winning the division, which is not unrealistic. That put them as one of the number 1 seeds, or if not the number 2 seed in the NFC. And I think that's possible. Just so you go look at the talent that's on the field. Yes, there's some people that left, but I think that's possible. And I think that's fair. I personally probably think it's going to be somewhere more in the middle. I think it's probably going to be around the 10-7 range. Maybe 11-6, but I also think that could still win them the division, because I don't think Dallas is going to be nearly as good as what they were last year. I think they have lost a lot, and organizationally too, I think they're going to regress a little bit as well.
Yeah, and I think you look at the other 2 teams in the division, and like Washington isn't quite there yet. I think on the defensive side of the ball, and granted, we don't even know what Jaden Daniels is going to be at this moment, and the Giants are also a wild card, but I still think on paper the Eagles should be the better team. So
I agree completely.
So yeah, but let's go ahead and we'll wrap this one up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of the Philadelphia Eagles offseason, and let us know what you think their floor and ceiling will be. Other than that, we will see you guys next time.